Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing fantastic out there. If you guys could subscribe, that would be great, and appreciate you guys stopping by. Man, there were some ominous quotes out of that Heat game last night, man. But the one that I was like most disturbed by was Jaime Jaquez Jr., Miami Heat wing player, great hair, not the greatest sophomore season. He's starting to show flashes of himself. I really thought that not much positive to take of yesterday's game, but Jaime probably had the play of the game for the Miami Heat, and that was his block on, was it OG Anunoby, which led to a great pass to Tyler Hero for a slam. But, man, he had this quote after the game, and I was like, whew, that is an ominous thing to say. Here was Jaime.
You know, it's frustrating. We're going through the dark days right now. I think as a team, we just got to come together and find a new fight. These last however many games we got left, and that's something that we've been talking about. And I think overall, just come together and, find something to rally around.
They certainly have to do that. It would be interesting. I don't know how long this losing streak is going to last. I certainly don't. Like, how do the Miami Heat get out of the dark days? Because, like, the numbers you guys have seen them, there hasn't been a losing streak of this under the tutelage of Erik Spoelstra as the head coach. I think it was Rohan Nakarni who I had on. Maybe it was like last year, and he had done some Jimmy Butler piece, and he had talked to Pat Riley, and he had said that one of the reasons Pat Riley told him that Erik Spoelstra didn't get the gig of the 07-08 season before he was handed the reins, which he eventually was, and they gave it to Ron Rothstein, is Pat Riley was too fearful that Erik Spoelstra would win too many games. And I don't, that was, it was a secondhand story, but I thought it was a great story, and one that actually does make sense from Eric's, from just what everybody thought of him, because you remember this young man in the oversized suits and what a job he did. And yeah, it's been the dark days, as Jaime says, and I think in a lot of ways it has been for Erik Spoelstra, who, it isn't done much, but I feel like he's a little bit out of a loss for answers, and he's throwing stuff against the wall. You could tell by his moves. It's been a little bit of that this year. I just don't think that this Heat team has been able to find any modicum of consistency. And this kind of goes back to last year, where they had what was a record amount of starting lineups and the availability issues and all that stuff, which was kind of the driving root of the whole Jimmy problem, on top of Tyler Hero's availability issues last year, which he has been able to, put behind him this year. Then, of course, you lost Terry Rozier to the neck injury, and you lose Duncan Robinson to the back injury last year. And now you're going through this stuff where, all right, Jimmy's gone. You have gotten a lot of games from Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, so there's been that consistency there. And I think the disappointing thing for Heat fans is that those guys haven't really been able to do much in the way of holding the fort, which has been disappointing, because I would say, to Tyler's credit, especially in the first half of the season, his monster scoring performances didn't result in wins. And I don't say that as somebody saying that they were empty games, because I think there were a lot of games that were even close because of Tyler Hero. This version of Tyler Hero that we're seeing, I think, is, it looks like he's searching a little. I think everybody is on this team. I think it's just going around. I think it's contagious. I think there is just this feel. And when you have Jaime saying something like that, it's tough not to just feel like there's a lingering dark cloud just over the team as it is. And I will say, I posted something that was a little tongue-in-cheek, but kind of serious as well. But the Miami Heat, they lose Nikola Jović in the game against the Bucks, and they really have not been the same since. The Miami Heat, and I'm counting the game that he lost, that they lost him, because he basically played a quarter of that game. But Nikola Jović, Nico, went out on February 23rd, broke his hand, in that game. They announced that he was unavailable in the after he heard it in the first quarter. Remember, he started playing it a little bit in the second quarter, and then he wasn't there in the after halftime. But since that time, the Miami Heat have plummeted. Not only with these 8 games, but they are 3-11, counting that Bucks game that he got hurt in. 3-11 with no Nikola Jović in the lineup. Is that everything here? I don't think it's nothing. I don't think that it's nothing. I think that there was something about Nico who embraced this role of being the sixth man so much. He gave a dynamic look to Miami, their ability to stagger with Bam and Kalel that kind of gave everybody a little bit of everything. Were there things that he was perfect with? No. Would he make silly mistakes every now and then because he's 21? Yeah. But to me, I just think something is missing with him gone, because I just feel like this team, there's so many guys on this roster who feel like you have to give them the ball to make them the most comfortable. And I don't think with Nico. I feel like with Nico, like, he'll be a willing passer. He'll be a rebounder and get the ball out. He is always seeming like he's looking to pass first. And then he's not scared to take shots if you do put him in that position either. And then there is the perfecting of him having to punish smaller guys. And certainly that's something that he's working on. But again, he's a baby in this league, even with this being his third year. I really think that there's something to it. You remember, like, last year, it just kind of went, everybody talked about the Jimmy injury, which was certainly the biggest, and the Terry injury, which was noticeable because of the neck and Tyler being out. But I really thought, like, last year, like, man, losing Duncan Robinson, who was arguably the Heat's third best player last year, was a huge blow. And I think to this effect, I think Nikola Jović, because he is just, he to me, out of everybody, like, he's been at least at his expectations or a little above his expectations of the season. Even with him not working out in the starting lineup, I just think that he found something comfortable in that six-man role. And that's even with knowing that, at times his net rating with the team wasn't very good. But I think that had to do with, it taking a while to find the perfect role for him. And I think it is and also he's just a delight. I saw today that it looks like him and Goran are doing a podcast. I don't know where that thing is airing. But I said it's Goosey's galore, and people are like, loose use of Goosey's. And what I would say to you, one, anybody who said that to me on Twitter, you're suspended. What that means, you'll have to deal with that yourself. Second of all, I invented Goosey's. You don't get to dictate whether or not I'm watering down Goosey's. And I'll be damned if you're going to sit here and tell me that Goran Dragic interviewing his young brate is not Goosey's galore. Because if you were to look up Goosey's galore in the dictionary, that picture would slap you right in the face. So kindly, I disagree, and you're dealing with your suspension as it is right now. The Heat are going to take on the Pistons tomorrow, which I like to refer to them as the scene of the crime, because two of the most impactful games, I think, that reflected on this season were the first Pistons loss on the road, where Erik Spoelstra ran out of timeouts, and you were like, what the hell was that? And then the second Pistons game that they lost in overtime, where Jimmy Butler had the last good game where he tried for the Miami Heat. Tim Hardaway hits 3 threes. And Jimmy Butler said after that, I believe his quote after that game was, "I despise losing." Little did we know that was going to be the last time that we'd actually play giving a rat's ass for the Miami Heat. It was one of his best regular season games in a Heat uniform, according to Basketball Reference. But these games against the Pistons, who have now passed the Miami Heat and I mean cleared the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference, these games have always been pretty competitive, even going back to last year. I was like, man, I would tell people, I was talking to somebody who works with the Pistons, and I'm like, I don't understand how you guys weren't better faster, because I just liked all the talent. I was a Cade Cunningham fan. Always impressed with him. Duran's a monster. Tim Hardaway is no slouch. Like, they got a lot of pros, and it's finally kind of come together for them. But they are, in a lot of ways, like if you want to point to where you knew this Heat season was going to go in a bad direction, you can look to those two games and just be like, that's where it is, right there. That's exactly our point of our line of demarcation in this season being awful, leading us to, as Jaime calls them, the dark, dark days. The Heat tomorrow might get Andrew Wiggins back. He is questionable, as is Alec Burks. They're not going to bring the G Leaguers. They're still playing with Sioux Falls. I am interested in seeing what the G Leaguers can do, specifically Keyshawn Johnson. I just want to see, a little cup of coffee with him on this roster. See him with Pella. I just think the Heat need more guys who are just not beaten down, that just want their opportunity to showcase. It's a little lost on this team right now. Most of the squad are guys who have kind of been there, done that, or are miserable veterans. And I just think that bringing that infusion of life, such a thing right now, talking about the state of Heat culture, but the Heat don't really have they don't have anybody other than like Haywood Highsmith from time to time who's bringing that. And Spo is so yo-yo-y when it comes to trusting Duncan or Haywood. And 1 minute they're starters, 1 minute the next he's their sixth man, the next they're out of the rotation. Like, he can't decide what he wants to get out of them or not. Spo gave voice to this after the game and said that it is on him that he hasn't come up with any answers.
I mean, of course, and we're all getting tested. I said this before, including myself. There's no one that's absolved, from this. I have not come up with enough answers for this team. I have to do a better job. Our group has to do a better job. We have to put our feet into the dirt and hold our ground, at this point. But you always have a choice. It doesn't mean that you're going to win or not. But we have to take strides where we're making progress, and it felt like we were making progress even with some of the losses in the last 3 weeks. We felt like we were making strides. The last two games haven't felt like we're making those kind of strides.
Well, not only these last two games, but if you look back to this Heat and this losing streak, it's so funny because you never know like what really were those big moments that swung you, but you think back to like how different would they be in a place if they were able to pull off the Minnesota game or the Cleveland game, and then it kind of unravels, and you saw these unravelings against terrible teams, the lack of hustle they had against Charlotte, the terrible defense, and that they had against Chicago, and then you get to the Clippers, the Celtics, the Grizzlies, the Knicks. It's not only that the Heat are losing, and they're getting drubbed, but none of those teams came at it with their full allotment of guys. No Brunson for the Knicks, no Ja Morant for the Grizzlies, no Jaylen Brown for the Celtics, no Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard for the Clippers. And you got Bogdanovich, you got Derek Whited, you got Jaren Jackson Jr., who's no slouch, and Desmond Bane, and you got Cadden and Mikal Bridged. And it's just like, man, that's where you're just lacking punching power as a team. And it's known. I mean, like, this has been a rightful complaint of the Heat fan through all of this, especially for the East teams that have gotten all better. And the Heat, their moves have all blown up in their face like dynamite, like Acme Dynamite, thinking that this was going to be something different for them. But it was not. And that is why, as Jaime says, we are in the dark, dark days right now.